If you were sued every time you accidentally violated intellectual property law in a single day, how much money do you think you would owe? How much money, would anyone want to shout out, take a guess? What do you think that figure is? I know that's kind of a hard question and no one's had nearly enough coffee yet. $100,000. $100,000, okay. So what I mean by these kind of things, it's not downloading music or stealing stuff. It's all the things that the average person does that they don't really think about as stealing. So singing happy birthday to somebody in a restaurant would count as a violation of IP law. Photocopying a page from a book, forwarding an email that you did not write. All of these things are technically illegal, and if you were sued for all of the things that you did in an average day, a law professor just worked this out, and he came up with the figure of $12.45 million per day for all the things that he did in a single day. Now, this might be slightly on the high side because he has a Captain Caveman tattoo on his arm, which is every time it's photographed he's violating intellectual property law with that. But that's still a crazy number. That's $4.5 billion a year. Now, of course, none of us are going to get sued for any of these things because they're all harmless and we just ignore them. But there is this huge gap between the way we use information and what our laws say about how we can and can't use information. And what I want to sort of think about first of all is, well, why? Why is that? How did we get here? Well, it's because most of these laws were written in the 19th century when the way that information flowed was very different. Information used to really just flow in one direction, kind of downhill. If you were a producer up here and you had consumers down here, or broadcasters here and receivers, consumers here, and so on, and whoever owned the means of production really got to call the shots. But that's not really where we are anymore. Information has become a two-way street. Anybody can rebroadcast or copy or repurpose anybody's intellectual property and do all kinds of things with it, which we all do on a daily basis. Lots of people are very concerned about what's happening, including lots of people in the music industry. They look at this new way people are sharing information and they see piracy, a threat, something that needs to be stopped, stamped out at all costs. And I think people are right to be scared because pirates are a threat. They do cause massive problems. Every single industry you can think of that deals with information in some way, from music to movies to TV to pharmaceuticals to fashion to millions more, are being affected by piracy. It's a problem for anybody who deals with the business of using information in some way. What I'm here to tell you today is that war is not the answer, because although pirates cause all kinds of problems, they also cause something else. Solutions. Pirates are in fact some of the greatest innovators ever to walk the face of the earth. And what I'm going to try and do is prove that to you and show you why the only way to beat pirates is really by becoming one yourself. Now, I know that that's kind of a strange thing to say, especially to a bunch of people in the music industry, that pirates are innovators, but I arrived at this conclusion at a really young age, and it was by being exposed to what was going on in the music industry where I grew up. I grew up here in London, and I was obsessed with music, and specifically the music coming from the pirate radio stations that cover London. Do you guys have pirate radio here as well, right, still? To this day? No? Yeah, okay. But most of you know what it is? Yeah, okay, so it's tiny illegal radio stations that people set up, usually in residential tower blocks in the inner cities of London and Paris and across the world, actually. But I was obsessed with these things growing up. I really loved the music that was coming from the pirates, and I could see that it was actually sort of adding value to the community that I was part of. I really liked how they actually sort of helped London create new music and culture, and all these different bands and artists got their first big breaks there. I spent most of my weekends and evenings at the top of tower blocks like this, in rooms like this, broadcasting music across the city, and we'd move the studio around like once every few weeks because the police were constantly looking for us and trying to catch us. But the weird thing was, although the police were trying to catch us, they also used to advertise with us. They used to advertise with, played on a station called Ice FM, which was one of the biggest in London. And the police knew that if they wanted to get a message through to young people in London, the pirates were one of the best places to go and advertise, and so they did. And it's really weird, and across the entire British music industry, it's recognised that although none of these pirate stations are paying royalties to any of the artists whose music they play, they actually add a lot of value to the British music industry. And it works like this. So here's the London radio market. You've got two big multi-million-pound companies targeting young people, trying to play them new music with actually three now big stations. And they have the same sort of commercial pressures that all big media companies have. They've got lots of overheads, lots of staff, so they need lots of ratings, and that means you get the same 20 songs on the radio 20 times a day, because that's how you get the most people listening. That's just how commercial radio works. But the pirates aren't in this space. The pirates are actually kind of over here. And with pirate stations, it's almost the smaller pirate. It's kind of like college radio. The more experimental they are, the more popular they tend to be. The more that they innovate, the more that they push out new sounds and styles, the more people tune into them. But what's cool about this relationship is both of these business models add value to each other. The pirates are trying to innovate and get their big break and do the new thing because they want to get the fame and recognition and cross over here. These guys need new music, they need new artists, they constantly need the churn of innovation, but you can't do that over here. But together, these two things work really well together. It forms kind of a virtuous circle where every part of this business model adds value to every other part. It really shows what pirates do well, and they do three things really, really well when they're adding value. The first thing they do is, as I said, is they look for these gaps outside of the market. They find the places they're not supposed to go, or the places they can operate. It might be the English Channel, it might be a community of pirate filmmakers on the west coast of America. And once they get there, they create something that's both a medium and a message. They create a vehicle, if you will. So with pirate radio, the vehicle might be a pirate ship with a radio antenna on it, but the message is very clear. Commercial radio is a good idea and we should have it. With a pirate community of filmmakers, the mediums they're spitting out are unlicensed films, but the message is Edison's license fee really sucks. We don't need this. And when pirates do this, when they come into a space and do something they're not supposed to, debate starts. People start arguing about what they're doing and whether it's right or wrong. And if the pirates are doing something really effective and they're doing it well, they always manage to harness the power of this audience. They get a critical mass of people behind them. And what happens then is laws eventually change. They create these periods of chaos, and eventually that chaos becomes the new order. And we're seeing this happen again now in the music industry, because really what piracy is, when it happens on such a large scale, when so many people actually support the actions of the pirates and use the services that they're offering, piracy is not just a problem, it's actually a market signal. It's letting you know that something is not working in the business model that you're working within the confines of. And this was very clear. If you look back at the last 10 years in the music industry, the majors did not want to compete or even acknowledge the guys over here, Napster and the college file sharing networks that started in the late 90s, as competition or as an alternative distribution system. It was never, ever, ever going to happen. They weren't. I know individual people at the labels who were trying to do this, but as a whole, it just wasn't on the cards. Even as Steve Jobs once put it, if you really want to beat piracy, the way to do it is to compete with the pirates. And that's what he did with iTunes, and that's now the largest domestic retailer of music in the US and is huge around the world. How should you respond to piracy? What's the best way to go about defeating this problem? And, well, okay, the first answer is easy. Sometimes we should be fighting pirates. I don't want to belittle intellectual property law. It's something we need. We need patents, we need copyrights. Creative people need to be paid for what they're doing. That's a given. We know that. But when you're fighting pirates that are actually doing something more valuable, it never really works out that well. And if you end up suing your fans, you turn them into angry mobs. And if suing your fans becomes a core component of your business model, the truth is you no longer have a very good business model. At that point, you need to be thinking about piracy as the competition, and you need to learn to compete with them. How do you compete with pirates? Well, it's easy. You copy them. It's that straightforward. And people are doing it in all over the world in all kinds of industries. This slide I showed you earlier of industries being hurt by pirates, all of these industries are benefiting by copying pirates as well. Another way to compete with pirates is to give them space, is to actually kind of instigate, let them copy you. Let people find new innovation and new value in your business model. This shouldn't just be something that happens accidentally. And you guys do this in the music industry already through the remix. This is what I'm really talking about. You pay people to take your IP and change it and do other things with it, and it creates new innovation. But the thing is about the remix is you can apply it to almost anything, and it still works. And lots of things that we think of as being really, really original products aren't original at all. So the iPod, people think this is the most original consumer product of the decade, but Toshiba made its hard drive, Sony made the battery, a company called Pixo made the operating system, and its iconic design is based on an old radio, the Regency TR-1, the world's first portable music player, which came out in 1954. But there's one last way that the remix, I think, can be really useful, and that's that it generates demand. It can actually create trends and seasons and can drive people back to the stores to buy more stuff. And the really obvious example of this is the fashion industry. In the fashion business, you cannot copy protect a 3D garment. If you draw a sketch, a 2D design, you can legally copyright that, but once it's actually been made and it's out there in the world, anybody can copy it. And bizarrely, this is why the fashion industry actually has seasons and trends. So it works like this. So one genius says, I know, let's have skinny jeans. Awesome. Designs a skinny jean, makes it, throws it on the catwalk. A bunch of other designers see it. Skinny jean, that's a good idea. I'm going to make my own skinny jean. Suddenly there are skinny jeans all over the catwalks. Fashion journalists are writing skinny jeans are hot. Next thing you know, celebrities are wearing skinny jeans. Before you know it, we're all wearing skinny jeans. Skinny jeans have become a trend. So this is how copying in the fashion business starts trends. If pirates are giving away something for free, you can always, always, always sell something that they can't. There are many, many examples of this. You can sell trust. You can sell convenience. Think about Vista, Windows Vista and Linux. Any of you use Linux? Linux? A few of you. Those people who don't, talk to somebody afterwards who uses Linux. They'll tell you it's amazing, it's wonderful, this amazing open source operating system that's going to change the entire world, and they're right, it's really, really amazing. Then go online and read a review of Windows Vista. Everybody hates Windows Vista. It sucks, it's awful, it's terrible. I'll pay you extra not to put it on my machine and just give me XP instead. Nobody likes it. And it costs hundreds of dollars. And everybody loves Linux, and Linux is free. Yet Linux has less than 1% of the market, and Microsoft has most of it. Why? Because this is just more convenient. We kind of understand it. It's on our machine at work, so that's what we use at home. You can sell trust. This is something that I think this is what they sell over at iTunes. They're not really selling music. You can go a click away and get most of the stuff on iTunes, actually more of the stuff than they have on iTunes, sometimes higher quality files for free. So how does this work? They've pulled down more than $4 billion since they've started. It shouldn't work, but it does, because a lot of people they're never going to download BitTorrent software. They're never going to use Linux. There are still millions and millions of people all over the world who think the internet is a magical box for buying things and looking at funny pictures of cats. And that is never ever going to change. So you're always going to be able to sell people stuff online. You can sell experience. This is something people sell all over the place. Last summer was Hollywood's biggest ever year at the domestic box office in its history. They pulled down nearly $5 billion. Why? Because this and this are not the same experience. No matter how good quality you get of your pirate DVD, no matter how big your plasma screen is, it's not the same thing as going to see a film on the opening night with 300 people you don't know. And as long as Hollywood keeps making this experience really good, they're going to be able to compete with these guys. And I think this is the part that we really don't still get, is that it's hard to change people's behavior. If you start suing people and telling them to stop doing something, you just make it cool. You just make it something they want to do more. But what is easier to do is actually change people's environment, change the environment in which they operate. So if suddenly you find that your customers have got all these opportunities to get your stuff for free, the smartest thing to do is to give them a ton of ways to get new experiences that they might want to pay for. There is a huge difference between a common thief and an exceptional thief, and this is the difference that we really need to understand. There are tons and tons of common thieves out there taking value from our business models, and we need to be fighting those guys with the law. But when it comes to an exceptional thief, these are people we need to be becoming. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the pirate's dilemma. Thank you very much.